Now, Iran says a new nuclear deal could be agreed with the United States, provided Tehran's longtime adversary shows sufficient goodwill in talks due this coming weekend. And the country saying that Iran's principal aim remains the lifting of sweeping US sanctions. Their reimposition by Donald Trump in 2018 continues, of course, to deal a pretty heavy blow to the Iranian economy. Iran, though, continuing to say the talks will not be direct, countering claims that Donald Trump made on Monday of direct talks. Well, let's talk about all the latest then with our international affairs editor, Philip Turle, who's joining me here on set. Philip, what form then are these discussions going to take, and what's being discussed?
OK, well, we don't really know much about what the two sides are going to be talking about. What we do know is that they are going to be taking place in Oman. That's something that Donald Trump didn't say on Monday when he was announcing these discussions. It was announced later by Iran, and we do know they're going to take place between Steve Witkoff, who's the US Special Middle East envoy named by Donald Trump. He's a former real estate agent, and by Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who was involved back in 2021 with trying to get the nuclear agreement back on the rails after it had been done away with by Donald Trump. That was back in 2021 when Joe Biden was president of the United States. What we're seeing here now is a bid by the US to come to the table in a way to stop Iran from pursuing its nuclear activity, and in particular from getting hold of a nuclear weapon. That is what Donald Trump wants to achieve. The problem is that, as I was saying, we're short on detail. We don't really know what these discussions are going to contain. Or what we do know is what Donald Trump has been saying, and that basically is that it will be a bad day for Iran if the discussions fail. It would be in great danger, which is also quite vague. It could be that Donald Trump is alluding to the idea that there will be military strikes against Iran if these talks don't end up with some kind of deal between the United States and Iran over the continued refinement of nuclear fissile material. So we don't really know much about what's going to happen. What we do know is that Donald Trump is in a hurry. He wants to get a deal done as quickly as possible. We also know that this is a very complicated issue because the nuclear issue is also related to the ballistic missile issue in Iran. The ballistic missile issue in Iran is something that is looked upon very favorably by the regime as being a way of protecting the regime. So how this is all going to work out very quickly is also unclear. So I think that we don't really know what's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see how these discussions take place on Saturday. But one thing is for sure, and that is that this is not exactly what Israel wanted.
Yeah, we saw at the beginning, as you were talking there, those images of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu in the Oval Office. Netanyahu's not going to be too pleased about this, is he?
Well, he was sitting there in the Oval Office, and one can't help but think that he was not having a very good time sitting in that chair next to Donald Trump, remembering what happened to Volodymyr Zelensky in the same chair on the 28th of February. He didn't say anything, but this was, let's say, a humiliating moment for Benjamin Netanyahu. Remember that Benjamin Netanyahu has been threatening Iran for months, saying that strikes against Iran's military were coming soon, and that it was a country posing an existential threat to the future of Israel. Well, that has all been swept onto the carpet right now as these discussions are moving forward. Remember that it was the United States that pulled out of the nuclear agreement back in 2018, that nuclear agreement that they'd signed under Barack Obama in 2015. But it was Israel was one of the countries that was the most against the nuclear agreement that Donald Trump pulled out of. So what we're looking at now is Israel sitting there waiting to see what the US is going to do. Whether or not they're going to take any action, we don't know. But Benjamin Netanyahu knows that he can't get on the wrong side of Donald Trump. So he has to go with what Donald Trump wants, because if he falls out with Donald Trump, the situation for Israel will be even more dire than it could be if he stays on board with Donald Trump concerning Iran. So that is really the position. It's a wait-and-see position to see how everything's going to progress this weekend in these talks in Oman.
Let's flip it on its head then, Philip. What about Iran? How strong a position is Iran in?
Well, I think the whole reason for this, Stuart, is that Iran is perceived by the US as being in a weak position. It's lost a lot of support because of the problems imposed on Hezbollah by Israel in southern Lebanon, the destruction of many Hezbollah bases and the killing of Hezbollah leaders. There's been the US attack against Houthi rebels, another Iranian proxy in the Red Sea. They were based in Yemen. We don't know exactly what happened in those attacks because the Pentagon hasn't given any fine details. That was a scam as far as all the discussions taking place on signal were concerned. And of course, the situation for Hamas also. Hamas has been severely weakened as a result of the war in Gaza. So the US sees Iran in a weak position and therefore ready to come to the negotiating table. As far as Iran is concerned, it's saying, well, look, it's the United States that have got to come up with an idea because we are not going to propose anything. This is going to be the US coming up. The ball is in their court, if you like. And it's difficult to see what is going to happen next because last time round in 2021, Joe Biden tried to bring Iran back to the negotiating table with several points, none of which were agreed upon by Iran, notably that the US recognize its own responsibility in the diplomatic tensions between the two countries, that they have to be all sanctions cancelled imposed by the United States on Iran, and also that the agreement should be guaranteed even in the change of a US president in the case of Donald Trump. That was something that just they couldn't agree on. And even Joe Biden said, well, the renewing of this accord is pretty much impossible now. So it's going to be difficult to see how Donald Trump is going to have to come up with some kind of an agreement on Saturday to move all this forward. So a lot of questions without answers right now, Stuart.
Philip, thanks very much, Philip Turle.